first one was anyone who had studied a graduate work course. So anyone that had a skilled occupation and maybe did a trade course to become a chef, did a trade course to become a carpenter, any of those 485 graduate work, which was an 18-month visa, those visas got increased and they were now granted for a period of 2 years. So it's lucky for anyone that got their visa granted in December, or anyone that's applying for that visa moving forward. It means that instead of just being an 18-month visa, it's become a temporary change, which will mean that it runs for 2 years. Okay, they haven't said when it's going to end, but they've had a temporary increase in that visa to allow it to go for 2 years. And again, that's to help with the fact that there's not as many people in Australia, and they want to have obviously more people in the workforce. But the good news for people that are finishing trades is that it gives you 2 years. And if you apply right at the end of your visa and you get a bridging visa, you might end up getting a visa that's 2.5 years long. So it gives you a lot of time to get work experience in Australia, to move states if you need to move states, to get state sponsorship for skilled migration. And it just gives you that additional time and that additional buffer. And there's nothing different you have to do. It's the same application process, but just instead of being granted for 18 months, it gets granted for 24 months. Now, one thing that we do get asked a lot is, if I got the 18-month visa, can I extend it for another 6 months? Unfortunately not. It's only for the people that are getting their new visas granted after that date. So if you had your visa granted before that date, it is only for that 18 months. But if your visa was granted after that date, then it's granted for 24 months. The second change that came in was for people that were doing masters by coursework degrees at university that were 2 years long. So if you were to study a master's by coursework that was 2 years in an area like Sydney, Brisbane, or Melbourne, for example, in the cities, you would generally get a 2-year post-study work visa. So one of the changes they announced in that is that if you apply after doing a master's in coursework that's 2 years, you'll now get a 3-year post-study work visa. So this means it's the same as someone before who would have done a master's by research. It's now become a 3-year post-study work visa. So again, this is great news. It just gives you more time in Australia to work after you've graduated. Now, as it was before, but just to mention it again, for those of you that studied in regional areas in Australia, you can get an additional 1 or 2 years or 3 on your post-study work visa. So if you studied in a regional area and did that master's by research or that master's by coursework in an area that's considered regional, you can get an extension on that visa for an additional year, or an additional 2 years if it's in a more regional area of Australia. So that's kind of how the additional years for the post-study work visa works. The last change that we really wanted to touch on today, Santi, was the one that we probably get a lot of questions on around vet and people that haven't studied a skilled occupation. The big change that they've made, and this change, I'm going to start by saying it, and I'm going to say it a lot, starts on the 1st of July this year and ends on the 30th of June next year. So it goes for exactly 1 year. And this change is that vocational students won't, when applying for like the graduate work visa, won't need to apply for a skills assessment for that period in time. And what that means is that anyone that studied a diploma, advanced diploma, for at least 92 weeks in Australia, and they finish their course before June 2023, can apply for a graduate work visa for 2 years. So there's no skills assessment requirement as part of that. So what that means is, if let's say I finished my diploma in project management now, and then I was thinking of, or I've started my advanced diploma in project management, and that finishes in November this year, and in total that is 2 years of study, then I'll still be able to apply for a 485 graduate work visa for 2 years, and I won't need to do a skills assessment. So it just means that they've relaxed it again to try and allow more people to stay in Australia and work. But one really important aspect of that is that 485 visas can only be granted once, okay? So you only get one shot at a 485 visa as the main applicant. As a dependent, you can be a secondary applicant another time, that's fine. But as the main applicant, you can only apply once.